Hey guys, it's Bina, and today I want to go over the Boulder Druid build guide. Basically, it's not going to be like a full-on guide, as I'm going to be writing this on Maxroll in the coming week, but it's going to be more of like a build overview. It's going to be showcasing what the build can do, showcasing what options you have in terms of skills. I have like one Paragon board that I have at the moment. I have the link in the description below for the planner that I am using right now. It's going to be only covering one version of it, but there are multiple different things that you can do. And the only important skills in this build, like the only mandatory ones, is they are Boulder and Hurricane. So what is this build? This build is all around Dolmen Stone, right? It's built around Dolmen Stone. It's an amulet that you can target farm by killing Duriel. It's the new bosses in Season 2 that you're target farming. So you go ahead and kill Duriel as many times as possible until he drops Dolmen Stone. Dolmen Stone has one unique line of text that says, casting Boulder while Hurricane is active will cause your boulders to rotate around you. So for each boulder that you cast, when you have Hurricane up, it will do just about 8 rotations. So it can hit about 8 times an enemy that is standing in front of you. So that makes it so you can spam many boulders and kill monsters in a certain way. It feels kind of like they're going through a blender. But one drawback to this is that Boulder also knocks back enemies, right? It knocks back enemies. It feels kind of weird when you want to go in a big pack of monsters and you're like, okay, man, this is a juicy pack. You go in and they all get scattered away because of your boulders. Yeah, so that is one big downside for it. Another big downside for this build, I'm going to start with the downsides because like you'll know exactly if you want to play this build or if you don't want to play this build. Another big downside is that it deals very poorly with suppressor affixes. Suppressor are the ones that just have a little bubble on top of them, and you need to stay inside of that bubble to not have your boulders get broken. But the problem is that you're knocking back enemies all the time, right? So that when you're casting your boulders, you need to make sure to try to move with the knockback so that your boulders don't get broken. Or you could just like use regular boulder without Hurricane and try to like knock them into like a wall or something. But you deal much less damage when you don't have the Dolmen Stone effect going on with the Hurricane, right? So big downside, have a big problem dealing with suppressor affixes. You have to avoid those at all costs. Only engage suppressors that you can deal with very easily. So I've been blasting some tier 100 nightmare dungeons all day. It's been going for the most part pretty well. I don't have capped armor, so I'm still not as tanky as I want. I did a very defensive Paragon board just to be able to like tank most of the attacks that are in here. It works pretty well. I'm still finding that I'm dying here and there, especially with suppressor sometimes. Like sometimes it's like a really bad combination of like suppressor with fire enchanted, so that and then fire enchanting suppressor and then like drifting shade, for example, and you just don't see anything anymore. So yeah, so those are the biggest downsides of the build. The biggest upsides of the build is like it's a new build, it's fun, it deals damage. It's you would think that because Boulder costs 50 spirit to cast with the metamorphic aspect, that it would be very hard on resource. But with Umbral, it's actually really nice because you're getting the slow from your Hurricane, you're getting the knockbacks from your Boulder. So you're getting a ton of resource, and resource is really not a problem. And on bosses, you just like alternate between casting Wind Shear and Boulder, and you're pretty good to go. So it has no real resource issues. It deals good damage. On your horse, you can actually have boulders around you on your horse. So you can move around with your horse and kill monsters without having to worry about, dropping down and casting boulders again. If you're just dealing with like with health tides and like with just like easy content, it will do just fine for that. It can kill Uber Lilith really well with a offensive setup. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's like bottom of A tier, maybe top of B tier. I still have to discuss about it, but the main reason why I put it down and not like as high up as I would like to is because it has a real hard time dealing with suppressors. Your boulders also get destroyed by wallers, and they also get very, very much slowed by the chilling winds affix as well. So there's a couple of downsides that make this build sometimes very frustrating to play, and so that's the main reason why I wouldn't put it as high as S or A tier at the top of A tier. But this is just my initial impression. So again, I just want to talk about the possibilities here. Another good thing about the build is that there's many variations that you can do. You can play the build with just like a regular helm. You can play the build with Tempest Roar to get access to Envenom easily. You can play the build with Vasilis to make it a Werebear skill and gain access to like some shape-shifting synergies. You can play the build with Shaco if you want, right? It has cooldown. You can play the build with Nature's Fury. If you want, you can even play the build with stacking cooldown as much as possible everywhere, and even maybe with the new Ring X Val that has cooldown on it, and then use another key passive other than Nature's Fury, maybe Ursine Strength, maybe Earth and Might, to gain damage or to gain like some crits all the time, guaranteed crits. There's a couple of bugs with Boulder as well. So there is, I don't know if it's really a bug or if it's something with a hitbox of enemies, but sometimes Boulder hits twice. So sometimes you're getting like double damage. I don't know exactly what causes this. Another thing, Boulder seems to crit way more often than it should. So I can't wait to get the target dummy to be able to test Boulder against the dummy and see exactly what's happening. Because it seems like my Boulders have 100% crit chance. I don't know if Natural Boulder or Savage Boulder is better here. Like, does Savage Boulder stack each time on every single boulder? If it does, it might be better. If not, Natural Boulder will be better. So there's all kinds of different things to test that I don't know for sure, and we're gonna be able to see once we have the target dummy, right? So overall, yeah, this build slaps, but it can be frustrating at times to play. I'm building very defensively with Tempest Roar at the moment, so that is going to be the one that's going to be in the planner with Tempest Roar. You can play this build with a one-hander and Totem. You can play it with a two-hander. You can play, like, everything is like pretty much flexible, right? As I said, there's only two skills that are mandatory, Boulder and Hurricane. You can play with any basic skill that you want. You can play with any defensive skill that you want. You can play with Earthen Bulwark, Cyclone Armor, Blood Howl, Debilitating Roar. I really love Debilitating Roar. It's like really good for tier 100s. You can play with Poison Creeper if you're not using Tempest Roar to get some poisons. You can play with Trample if you want to get some, like, maybe some spirit, maybe some movement abilities. There's a ton of things that you can do. You could like not use Petrify if you don't want to. Like, there's really, it's open to your own customization more than any other build that I've played so far. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go look at the gear that we have. I have my Tempest Roar, obviously. Tempest Roar is mainly used for me to gain access to Envenom. I'm using a defensive chest piece with Disobedience. I'm using gloves that have just like damage stats. So crit damage, attack speed. I'd like to get willpower here maybe. I have Retaliation on here. So Retaliation increase it's again for your damage. I have another pair of defensive pants with a defensive aspect on it. I have Symbiotic on my boots, with just trying to get as much movement speed because you don't have movement speed on your amulet, right? So I'm just trying to get as much movement speed here and defensive rolls and whatever. I'm using a mace, but this is just my one-hander. Ideally, you should probably go with a two-hander, which I have in my stash here. I have an actually pretty nice staff for this build, right? So you could play with this with a staff, or you can play with a one-hander and a totem. If you want to get more damage reduction, I suggest playing with a totem because you can get damage reduction from fortified and damage reduction from poisoned enemies, which will feel really nice for your tankiness because you're just always standing there in front of monsters, especially those really bad suppressor affixes. Like, it's nice to be able to tank them, right? I don't feel like the damage is bad even with a one-hander. Obviously, you'll do more damage with a two-hander, but like even with a one-hander, it feels really good. But yeah, ideally what you want is like crowd control, core skill, all stats, willpower, stuff like that, right? I'd say all stats and willpower, that's like really, really powerful. Damage to crowd control is mainly there because on your Paragon board, right, you have access to this node, Earth and Devastation. You want that bonus to be capped as much as possible. So that is why you go for crowd control on your weapon, and we're going with a staff. Dolmen Stone, the core of the build. So what you're really looking for here would be like the ranks of the rat skill does not matter because you're not getting the wrath tag because Boulder is now a core skill and not a rat skill. So you don't really care about this. You don't really care about the magic skill cooldown, except if you're using the cooldown version that does not use Nature Fury. Then you might want to get the 20.2% one. Resource Gen is nice. I guess Resource Gen and Maximum Life are the two roles that you're really looking to get high. Now you have rings, right? I have Natural Balance on one and Umbral on the other one. Umbral is just really, really nice for quality of life and just to be able to spam your boulders as much as possible. Natural Balance is great because you're always casting a Storm skill in between, right? Just like the interaction between Hurricane and Boulder is also a Storm skill and an Earth skill. So it's really, really good. But you also have Wind Shear that, is your basic attack. You're looking here to get like crit chance, physical damage, crowd controlled, and maybe like life or crit damage or vulnerable damage or something like that, depending on if you want to be more tanky or if you want to deal more damage. Same thing goes for both rings, right? And yeah, if you're using a one-hander and a totem, I use accelerating aspect on the totem to get access to more attack speed. So it feels better because I'm using some Vampiric Powers as well that heals me and stuff like that. So in tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons, it feels very good. So for Vampiric Powers, I use Metamorphosis to get access to Unstoppable. I go Ravenous because it's just insanely good for attack speed. Prey on the Weak to get vulnerable permanently on bosses and on enemies that are affected by my Vampiric Curse. Undying to get a lot of heals because I'm doing like high difficulty content. And then Resilience to get even more damage reductions. These are my preferred ones that I have been using for tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon. My Spirit Boons, as always, damage reduction from elites. Almost never want to get anything else than this on this one. So I'm using, again, 14% maximum life because I'm doing hard content. Swooping attacks for attack speed. Bolster to fortify. Like, this one is, like, not really super needed, but it's kind of nice because, like, if you ever get hit, then you regain your fortified status much faster. But you can use something else if you want. And on this one, there's really nothing really good if you're using Tempest Roar, but I go for Obsidian Slam for a bit more damage. The Paragon board, you'll be able to see it in the planner below, but you need to know I'm going for a very, very tanky Paragon board. I'm going with Exploit. I'm going with Earth and Sky. I'm going with Spirit. We're using Outmatch, and we are using Undaunted. For the legendary nodes that we're getting in here, we're getting Inner Beast. So as you shapeshift, your costs are reduced by 10% for 5 seconds, up to 30%. That makes it very easy to lower the cost of your boulder. You're getting Heightened Malice because we're using Tempest Roar and we're poisoning stuff all the time near us. So we deal 45% increased damage. You deal 30% increased damage after spending Spirit. That's always available. And we have Earth and Devastation. We are capped in our all res. One thing that I did on my board is that I used something special here, which is, well, not something special, but like I pathed it this way, right, to get some lightning res and some maximum life to be tanky. And then that enables you to have like poison res on Tempest Roar, lightning on your Paragon board, and then you fill the other 3 res by using one different type of gems of each type of damage. So that is what I did there. So that covered that up. Let's go ahead and go for the skills now. In the skill tree, again, this is going to be in the planner down below. But I go for Wind Shear to get movement speed mainly. I go for the increased damage there, the crit chance. I go for attack speed on Blood Howl. I go for Debilitating Roar. This is my main defensive skill that I use when I engage packs of monster in tier 100. I would use something else if I don't need like the tankiness, but since I need it, also heals you. Of course, maximizing your res and damage reduction. I'm using Mandatory, right? Enemies affected by Hurricane deals less damage. You don't really care about the vulnerable anymore. It's just a 20% multi, and then you also apply it with your curse anyways. Max out Boulder. Boulder, I don't know which one is better. Like, I need to test this more thoroughly, but I go for Natural Boulder because if it works like I think it does, Natural Boulder will be better. Crushing Earth, Stone Guard for more damage. Safeguard for Fortify. You go Toxic Claws and then Venom. This is what's gonna make Tempest Roar work. And give you access to End Venom. By the way, End Venom is still multiplicative, so don't get fooled by the 30% plus bonus critical strike damage. It is still multiplicative, guys. Only 1 point in Petrify because you don't really care about the resource. You don't really care about the increased duration. You could use the duration, but I prefer to have more healing. So I use for all the damage stuff here. I use for the healing. And then Nature's Fury to reset the cooldowns of all of your skills, especially Hurricane when you use Boulder. So that pretty much covers the build. As you saw in the footage at the very start of the video, it clears pretty well tier 100s. I'm having fun with this build, although it is frustrating at times, dealing with certain affixes and you know, getting your boulders to be broken for no good reason, because they actually put in the patch notes that they would not be broken by suppressor affixes, but it is what it is. Maybe they'll fix it eventually, or maybe I just misunderstood and it just meant that you need to be inside of that suppressor bubble to have your boulders not be broken. Anyways, that pretty much covers it. Again, I will go over the build guide on Maxroll in the coming week probably, so I'll be writing a full build guide out of it. I still have some testing to do, some more knowledge to gain, and then we're going to be ready to do a build guide on Maxroll. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy the Boulder build, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.